You are always choosing. I kind of offer the reader a thought experiment. And I say, imagine like a mafia guy kidnaps your family and then puts a gun to their head and says, if you don't run a marathon tomorrow, I'm going to kill your family. And you're out of shape. You haven't gotten off the couch in a week. This would be horrible. It would be absolutely traumatic. It'd be terrifying, arguably the worst experience of your life. Now imagine training for 9 months, hiring a coach, buying a bunch of gear, practicing, getting ready for a marathon, running the marathon, having your family attend, cheer you on, crossing the finish line, and then going and celebrating with everybody you care about and love in your life. That would be one of the best experiences of your life. Now, what's interesting is that the actual pain of running the marathon isn't any different. The only thing that's changed is the context. And what I argue in this chapter is that what has actually changed is the perception that you chose to run the marathon or not. For whatever reason, when we feel as though we are choosing our struggles or we are choosing what problems we have in our life, they seem much more acceptable and easier for us to deal with. When we feel as though our problems and our struggles are thrust upon us without our control, that's when we suffer. You are always choosing, whether you realize it or not. There's no such thing as a situation where you are not choosing your struggle or not choosing your problem. The only thing that changes is whether you admit it to yourself or not. People don't like hearing this point. They don't like hearing the idea that every problem in their life, they chose it. The reason why is I point out that we tend to conflate responsibility and fault. We assume that if you are responsible for something, it means that it's your fault. But these are two completely different things. You know, it's like if I get cancer, it's not my fault that I got cancer, but it is absolutely my responsibility to deal with the cancer. You know, if somebody leaves a newborn baby on my doorstep, that's not my fault that somebody left it there. But it is absolutely my responsibility. I have to do something about it. And every moment of life is this way. Even if the mob boss kidnaps your family, makes you run a marathon, you are choosing to run the marathon. You are choosing for the lives of the people you care about to be more important than the pain of the marathon. The thing you are choosing from moment to moment is how to value each experience.
The part about him saying that you are always choosing, I do agree. And the idea that suffering that you admit or accept that you are going through and choosing to go through is easier to swallow than suffering that you feel is coming from the outside. So right now we're all suffering in our portfolios, right? Everyone's down. I'm not responsible. It's like this idea of responsibility and fault. I'm not at fault for why my portfolio is down, but he's right. It is absolutely my responsibility to do something about it.
Are at fault. You picked shitty stocks.
I don't have any meta. What are you talking about? I don't have meta. I didn't buy any. I don't have any meta in my portfolio. I don't have any Palantir.
At this point, we all picked shitty stocks.
Yeah, it's all. No, but it's the idea that like I'm not responsible for my portfolio being down, right? But the suffering that I am choosing to go through is to accept that that is part of the cycle of life. And so I'm not saying I caused the stock portfolio going down, but I have a responsibility to own the fact that this is part of the cycle, and I cannot get upset about this part of the cycle. If I enjoy the markets when they're really high and I'm ready to take profits, I can't be upset during the part of the year when I'm planting the seeds and watering them before the plants have grown. If I'm expecting to have a huge harvest of whatever, of lettuce, there's got to be a point where you're planting and watering and giving it attention and nothing's happening. And the suffering in the markets is a lot easier for me to stomach, knowing that I'm choosing to stay here and I'm in it for the long haul, the choosing to be the long-term investor versus the short-term trader.
First of all, we chose the investments that we made, and some of them are wrong, and we have to accept that.
Yeah.
And when we choose to stay in them, we're once again choosing to keep losing. That's what I feel. So that's why, back to the Palantir thing, why I left. I didn't want to keep losing with CARP. I wanted to keep losing with Enphase, and then they won.
Right.
But there is actually a philosophy that I follow besides pragmatism. If I was to say, what's my philosophy? It's pragmatism and existentialism.
Listen, we're getting all philosophical here. This is infinitely more valuable than any one of CARP's rants. Seriously.
The reason I'm bringing this up because I am an existentialist. Here's what it is: a philosophical theory of approach which emphasizes the existence of the individual person as a free and responsible agent determining their own development through acts of the will. So this is very important, that you are a free agent. There is no God you can look up to that's making you do this. So I want to relate this obviously to the portfolio and not become
I guess somehow we're going into the weeds.
I'm going to relate this.
This is good. Let's bring it back around. I'm going
to relate this to the portfolio, obviously. But I've always believed that what I do is on me. It's not on anybody else. If I do something good, then great. I've done that. If I do something bad, I've done it. You have to own your mistakes, and as well as the positive things you put out.
That's very Republican of you. Who's this guy? Give a tally back on the give a tally back on the podcast.
As you get older, you become more Republican. We have invested in certain things that you lost faith in, and we got rid of them as we lost faith in. That's part of existentialism, that you realize you made a mistake and you have to correct it. A lot of people that are investing are not correcting their mistakes. They're continuing with the losses, trying to find reasons why those losses.
Just say lemonade stock, dude. Do you know you want to say it?
I got out of that too. Lemonade. I think a lot of people, like you said, are blaming everybody else. Like, oh, Elon is doing this to me, or the CEO of Lemonade, whoever he is doing this to me.
He's not doing the right thing, right?
Or Clark is doing this to me, or Noto is doing this to me from SoFi. It's not that. That's not what it is. We chose to follow these people. They are the leaders of those companies, but we chose it. I'm not blaming Elon. I'm not blaming Badri. Well, he's helping us, but I'm not blaming. So,
damn you, Badri, buying me a pool.
Was it Buffett who said that every day you wake up, you're deciding that, like, let's say you put $1 million in something. I forgot who said this, but you put $1 million in some stock. Every day you wake up and $1 million is in there, you're deciding to reinvest that million.
Oh, that was Dave Ramsey. Yeah, Ramsey was talking to someone who wrote in this, and mind you, Ramsey doesn't know anything about crypto. The guy was saying, I have 500,000 in crypto that I bought with a couple of bucks in 2012. And he was saying, okay, so just to keep in mind, or you need to consider it, that every day you're reinvesting $500,000 into Bitcoin every single day that you're not selling. Personally, I see crypto as more like real estate, and I don't see it as I'm making the investment every day. No,
I see it every day, because every day I can sell and go somewhere else. The market is liquid. Sure. The market is liquid, meaning if I don't believe in one thing, Palantir, I'll bring that up again, I get rid of it, and then I go buy something else, which I do believe in.
What I'm hearing you saying is this idea that when you really do your diligence and you know that, say, you're choosing to invest in a certain industry or a certain company, when the stock goes down, what's changing is you seeing the apparent disconnect between the value of the company and the price of the company, and that's how you see it as a discount. It sucks to know you're holding on to something that's less valuable than it was the day before. But if you know that is due to a big disconnect in terms of education or knowledge, and you also know that Wall Street is driven to make profits, you know that eventually every one of those bears will come back around and the money will.
We don't know, but we have enough information.
High conviction, right? You say high conviction. Right. Tesla now in specific is a company that it's moving a lot more on sentiment than it is fundamentals. At a certain point, the fundamentals really do matter. Right now, they might not. But just to that point, though, even if you look at like Amazon stock or Rivian stock, just those two stocks in particular, and overlay the charts on Tesla, it's the same chart.
Yeah,
it's just money leaving the markets. I think the mainstream media it's painting a narrative that it's coming from Twitter, that it's this idea of Twitter, but it's not. It's people just rotating out of it because of inherent volatility, or maybe not seeing that they're going to hit their 50% year over year. And it's also the macroeconomics of the Federal Reserve. This cannot be understated.
At the end of the day, we are responsible. I think that's what the point is for me.
Chapter 6, why you are wrong about everything, but so am I. Think back 500 years ago, people thought, the earth was flat. They didn't even know the Western Hemisphere existed. They thought fire was made of a thing called phlogiston. And then I kind of pull that out to a personal level. I say, think about what you thought was true 10, 20 years ago. And then from there, I say, now imagine everything you think is true today, and imagine how ridiculous that's going to look 20 years from now or 500 years from now. Like, everything we think is so true and important today is going to be absolutely ridiculous to us at some point. And that's actually a good thing. Like, we should hope that our present day beliefs look ridiculous to us, because that means that we've grown and become smarter. The binds that certainty can get us into. And then I kind of trot out the benefits of uncertainty. It opens up space for you to learn and improve. It helps guard you against like extremist ideology or just becoming like a crazy zealot for some cause. It opens room for dialogue with people, to learn from other people, to make other people feel more heard, which improves relationships. I've got a section in here that I call Manson's Law of Avoidance, which I decided to be cheeky and name a law after myself. But Manson's Law of Avoidance says that the more something threatens your identity, the more you will avoid it. Manson's Law basically says that like the more threatening something is, the more we will become certain in things that will help us avoid dealing with that truth. An extension of Manson's Law of Avoidance is that we should define ourselves as loosely and ambiguously as possible, because the less defined our self is, the less we need to cling to defense mechanisms or faulty ideas to protect ourselves. This is fundamentally a Buddhist idea, the idea of no self. You know, if there is no such thing as self, then there's nothing to protect. Finally, I finish up the chapter with a few questions to help you become more uncertain in your life. Question number 1 is, what if I'm wrong? Question number 2 is, what would it mean if I were wrong? Question number 3 is, would being wrong create a better or worse problem than my current problem, both for myself and others?
I just want to point out he should not join Twitter.
Well, why? You say would get just
Everybody's so certain when they're posting this shit.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I definitely thought of Twitter and some of these people that we've had arguments about ICE vehicles versus EVs. We see those people all the
But
time.
aren't we then to blame too for being so certain about certain
Yeah,
things?
but this is why I love like the finance junkies thing, and this is why I like the dynamic that we have in the channel, is that you can fill in a blind spot that I might not see. And if I don't see that, then I could be the guy on the island fighting World War II for another 20 years. If someone doesn't say, hey, dude, you know, the war's over, or hey, man, you know, I read this thing today about this company and it doesn't look good for them. Or do you know what I'm saying? I think being open to those ideas and allowing other people to influence you makes you a better person.
You need to know what's happening on the negative side of things. If everything is
Yes.
positive in your worldview, you'll never see that blind side coming, you know?
And you know some of these, I won't call anybody out, but you know some of these people that are really bullish, say, on a specific company, and they will not allow any dissenting voice or opinion to come in and speak about that company. They won't even allow you to interpret something as clear as like an earnings report where there's some clear red flags. You know, you see this with companies like FUV or even the Palantir community. I say that the Palantir community is that I've been exposed to has been really sort of rigid in terms of any sort of dissenting opinion on it. We saw that even with a couple of videos that we posted. I got banned from like some Palantir Reddit forums because they were, it's strange to me. I'd rather be wrong in that 1 second and be rich later than be right and be broke.
This is a good time to point out the Discord, because on here, your opinion will not be blocked. You can say anything you want as long as it's not
As long as you're not being a jerk.
You're not being a jerk, and you're not disparaging people on purpose, and you're just talking about the actual investments. And we have, by the way, bears and bulls discussing even in the Tesla channel. Like, I
know it got heated in there the other night with the Twitter. I was working that night and I was like, don't let me jump into this Twitter, Tesla, Musk conversation.
So yeah, we have bulls and bears on both sides talking, and no one is being shut down. Come and join us in the Discord. That's free, and obviously join us in the Patreon.
Yeah, well, the point is the Discord is a perfect example of that. It is just a marketplace of ideas where you get to hear what other people think, and you know that each one of these people are autonomous, free will human beings exercising their rights to live their life a certain way, and it gives you something to base and compare with, right? It gives you something to relate to. That is something that I find incredibly valuable, because I would not want to be one of these people that does not want my ideas to be challenged.
Well, yeah, I want to point out that the Tesla community, there's a lot of people being split now, but there's a lot of people online still super bullish and saying Elon's doing everything right. And I want to point out, I'm bullish on Tesla, but I don't think Elon is always doing everything right. And that's fine, because we're investing in a high growth, highly flawed individual that has been flawed for a very long time. So I've accepted that on some level, obviously, because I keep buying Tesla shares. But the thing is, I can have both existed within me, saying that the individual can be slightly flawed and still make us whole.
These 3 questions, I think, definitely relate to people as they're developing a thesis or a conclusion about a company. What if I'm wrong? We do this to ourselves all the time. This is, again, something I really like about the finance junkies thing, is that we try to prove each other wrong all the time. And maybe we all leave that conversation feeling exactly the same way, but you've planted a seed and you can't forever then on, you can't say you didn't know. What if I'm wrong? What would it mean if I was wrong? Like you were saying, right? What's his name left Meta. That changes things. That is saying, okay, what does that mean if my thesis was based on that? How do I change my investment strategy? And would being wrong create a better or worse problem than my current problem, both for myself and others? Yeah. Would being wrong make a better or worse environment for my money to grow in?
And this is another reason, the what if I'm wrong? That's what I keep asking myself, even about the ones I have high conviction in.
Yeah.
That's why I have, the 4 or 5 big players with the other 10 tiny things that can still grow to become big.
Right, because they can all be wrong at the same time.
Well, I'm hoping they can't all be wrong at the same time.
Right, at the same time. Yeah.